Hi guys, this is Tina. Welcome back to my channel. So if you've seen my little trailer, then you'll know that I'm going to try and embark on a little series just running, whereby hopefully I'm going to upload a video once a week making items in bulk for your journals. This is an area that I really struggle with. I did mention that kind of in the trailer, and obviously I've mentioned it in other videos. I find it very boring, very tedious, making the same old thing time and time again. But I would love to do that because it would be so useful when I actually came to make a journal. If I had a whole bunch of stuff ready to go, I do have things ready to go, but I never ever use them. I still create individually per journal. So I just thought we'd come along and have a bit of a play. Hopefully we're going to use up some scraps and use up some of our 12 by 12 papers, which if you're anything like me, you will have a ton of, well, both scraps and 12 by 12 papers really. So what I thought we'd do today as the first episode is we will bulk make just some of these little flip downs. Now, I love using these in journals. I think they're really super fun. They were probably one of the first style things that I used in journals, and I still use them constantly now. I just think they're super cute. You can put them, you know, portrait or landscape on a page, and they're just really, really fun to use. So obviously these are a couple that I have already made just to kind of show you. And then what I've done, I've just pulled in a few sheets that I've obviously used little sections of. So I've now got them, you know, partially used, and I thought, you know, first of all, we'll start using up some of these. Now, I don't measure. If you follow my channel, you'll know that I don't really measure things. So, you know, I don't know whether these happen to be the same size-ish. No, as you can see, so this one is, you know, good, I don't know, almost getting on for a centimetre shorter than this one, if you see there. So, you know, they're slightly smaller. It's also a good centimetre shorter on the width. But I think there's, you know, a place for everything. I think sometimes you need a big piece, sometimes you need a slightly smaller piece. So, you know, I think it's fine. You know, you don't have to measure, you don't have to get hung up on doing things like that. So these are two, obviously, that I've made from 12 by 12 papers. Now, this obviously, this is, let me get rid of these so I've just got one piece at a time. This is one of my collage pieces. This is the Autumn Avery, and as you can see, I've already used an image from here. So, as you can see, this runs landscape, you know, the pattern is landscape. So, if I kind of unfold this to demonstrate, this is obviously longer than my A4 page. So, I can use it this way to create a little fold down. Whoops. But obviously it's going to be smaller. So, I just need to bear that in mind. Or, what we could do is have it, excuse me, have it this way round. So as on the page, it would be portrait. So I think that's what I'm going to do. Now, as I say, I don't measure. So, you know, this is kind of a, you know, pointless thing that I'm doing here really. But just to, you know, for purposes of demonstrating the very first one, I'm just going to very roughly measure so that you guys can really see what we're doing. I mean, you've probably all made a ton of these yourselves before. I'm sure you have. You know, but just in case there's the odd person who hasn't seen it, I don't want you to be wondering what we're doing. So, you know, that's why I'm doing that. So the next thing you want to do is decide obviously how you want it folded, because you might have different, you know, this obviously is a collage page, so it's going to be very different from one end to the next. So obviously, you know, you want, I mean, this is the same pattern effectively. It's darker one end, lighter than the other end, but effectively it's the same. So it didn't really matter which way in I folded that to have my long piece and a short piece. But obviously, depending on the paper, it might matter. So for instance, this paper, it might be nice to have the longer section as this section, if that makes sense. So I'm just going to fold that in roughly here, like that. And then I try and leave a little bit of gap rather than butt it right up next to it, but not too much. I will just fold it over like that to make my little fold out. Now again, you can obviously decide, you may want to have your fold out piece the whole length, you know, this whole same size as your back piece. I quite like having them smaller, if that makes sense. So I'm just going to cut this down. Again, I don't measure, I'm just going to randomly, you know, pick a place like that. How cute does that look? So I'm just going to trim up here because obviously I've not made a brilliant job of cutting that. So just cut that down, just check it doesn't look too awful when you fold it out now. So that's my first one. And then what you can do is obviously you can round your corners. Oops. I could really do with the new rounder, corner rounder. And they're only cheap. It's just one of those things that, you know, as soon as you stop using it, stop crafting, it doesn't really enter my head again until the next time I come to use it. And I think, oh, I must order a new one. Right, so that's that piece. Now you can go in and obviously round your inside corners as well if you want. So I will just round those as well, like that. Now what I'm wondering is whether it's worth not actually decorating these up at this point. Obviously for me, I love decorating, so the first thing I want to do is straight away instantly get decorating this. But because we're making these in bulk and I want to have a bunch to just grab for journals, I'm thinking that it might be better to leave a bunch of these quite plain, so that then when I come to pull them into a journal, I can tailor it to the journal that I'm going to be using. So that's, you know, that's my thinking really. So I'm just going to bulk make a few of these, which I'm sure is so dull to watch. But hopefully you're crafting along with me and, you know, bulk making a few of your own. You know, and then obviously it won't be so boring because you'll also be doing it. But I'm just thinking, you know, if all of these fundamental bits, i.e. the cutting, the folding, the, you know, rounding the corners, if all those bits are done, I can just, you know, have a flick through wherever I decide to keep them and then work with them like that. So my next scrap, this is again another one of my collage sheets. This is the antique flowers. Now I've not obviously got it A4 here. I've only got this kind of scrap left. So I'm going to have to obviously use it this way up this time. So again, if you want to have your bits right way up, you know, if your paper is the type that's got a right way or a wrong way, i.e. your text, you just need to take that into account again when you're folding it over. So this piece here, I'm just going to fold it like that, and then I'm going to just fold my top piece like that. And again, I'm just going to trim this down because it's quite large. You know, it probably wouldn't even really fit on a page if it were going to be landscape. So I just trim that down, and again, just going to round the corners like that. So yeah, I mean, obviously this is episode 1, you know, you must, well, I was going to say you must guide me as to how dull this process is, but I may have already filmed several episodes, so it's not that I will be ignoring comments or suggestions, but obviously if I've already filmed ahead, then it, you know, could well be a few videos down before I get round to paying any attention. Right, so again, same situation with this. I'm just going to, you know, cut this like this. So, you know, if you're making some, then, you know, obviously I don't now need to be telling you what I'm doing, because obviously we've made a couple now, so hopefully it's all making lovely sense, and there's no need to be, you know, still describing the process. So hopefully we can move on and chat now about some more interesting things. So I recently went to watch that film yesterday. I don't know whether anyone's heard of it. It's a British film, so I don't know whether it actually is even showing elsewhere. But it was, something had happened. There was like a power outage. This is the plot. There's like a power outage, or, you know, something. And it's across the whole world. The whole world. And in that, certain very famous brands of things are literally wiped out of people's knowledge. So for instance, well, wiped out of existence. So for instance, Coca-Cola, wiped out. Nobody's heard of Coca-Cola. You know, it doesn't exist. Pepsi, that still exists, but Coca-Cola doesn't. Cigarettes, wiped out. You know, out of existence. So that's a really good one, isn't it? To have been wiped out. Actually, I've just noticed I didn't round those little edges, so I'll just do that. But one of the other things that was wiped out, you know, from people's knowledge and wiped out of existence was the Beatles. So there's just one lad who just happens to have not had his memory wiped out. So he can still remember the Beatles, and he can still remember all of their songs, and it just happens that he also is a musician. So he then, you know, because he's struggling to make it in the world of music, he then is kind of, oh, now, shall I rip their songs off, you know, and claim them to be mine? So, you know, he does. And let's face it, you know, who can blame him if you were a struggling musician who'd spent years and years trying to make your way, and then you were the only person who knew, and you know, nobody had even heard of the Beatles. They literally did not exist. So right, just before I finish chatting about the film, the next thing that I thought was actually make a couple of plain ones. So here I've just got some coffee dyed cardstock, and I thought make a couple of plain ones, because then they're going to go with every single journal, you know, regardless. There's no hanging up, or getting hung up, sorry, on, you know, do they match? Are they going to go? They're all going to go. So that's why I thought make a couple of plain ones in with my bulk making. And I will probably do this, you know, with everything that we make. I mean, you know, obviously this is the first episode, so I need to really have a think about the things that we're going to make each week. But, you know, I will probably make some from patterned paper and some from plain. So, yeah, that was just a quick word on that. Yeah, so anyway, he decides that he will, you know, rip the Beatles songs off. Struggles for a little while to remember all of the words, you know, from the songs and things, you know, as I'm sure that most of us would. But, I mean, he does pretty well and kind of comes up with the words. But oh, it was a really good film. Very fun. So, and he does the decent thing in the end. Sorry, that was a spoiler, and I do apologise. But I won't tell you what that is, you know, because it had a little twist as well. So, yeah, it was a good film. You know, kind of sometimes you go to the cinema and think, oh, now is that going to be worth watching? It was a little bit like that about it, and it was a really nice evening, kind of really sunny and things. And I thought, oh, is this going to be a bit of a waste of the nice weather to go to the cinema in this? But actually, it was a really good film, and it was worth watching. So, yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. Right, so I'm just checking which is the edge I cut, so that I can try and neaten it up a little bit prior to folding. Okay. Yeah, it was really good. So if you know, see some, I don't know, Netflix or anything like that coming up, obviously it won't be yet because it's only been at the cinema, but having said that, they do come out pretty quick, don't they now? So it's worth a watch. I mean, I can remember, and I say this to the children, you know, when we were younger, you know, growing up as children, and things would come out at the cinema. And I mean, sometimes, I don't know whether I'm exaggerating here, I feel like things took 9 months to a year to be released on video. I don't think that I'm imagining that. I think that was how long things took. Depending, I think, how big the film was. So if it was a really, really popular film, very anticipated, and, you know, everyone was very excited, I think they generally took longer to come out than those that, you know, were not particularly popular. Yeah, so, you know, again, it's another thing where I just think, kids of today, you know, don't want to sound like an old bag, but kids of today, they just don't know how lucky they are. Not having to wait for things. It's, you know, just phenomenal. Right, the next thing that I thought I would do is, obviously we're still going along the same theme and we're still making the same item, but I've just got some 12 by 12 paper here, and I thought, let's make some from this, because again, this is something else that I've got a ton of, and some of them I will struggle to use. This, for instance, it was a Christmas paper, but it's effectively quite plain. So the only part really is this section here. So I'm just having a look whether I can get two that way, and I would obviously then feel the need to decorate over and cover up this, or if I did it this way, because effectively that decorated part is going to actually be glued down onto the page. So that's my thinking there. So I'm just going to cut straight into that. Again, no measuring, and I don't want to kind of think about this too much, because then I will, I'm sure, struggle, you know, to well, to do it at all. So just cut it down like that. Yeah, I just think kids are so lucky. Well, I think we're all lucky, you know, to be honest, with the internet and things. I think we're all lucky because we have such an amazing resource there, basically. I mean, it is unbelievable, isn't it? You know, YouTube, I think YouTube has kind of changed the face of the earth, to be honest. And you know, there's nothing you can't find how to do. Now, I'm just trying to be careful, trying to work out how to get it so that I'm really not getting much of that pattern at all, because obviously this section's got quite a lot. I could end up getting quite a lot of pattern. So just having a look here. So if I do it like this, and I mean, again, I'm probably not thinking about this overly much because I'm obviously here doing a video and chatting away, but, you know, I possibly, if I'd given it more thought, could have got that better, but never mind. So that's that piece. I've made a hideous job of folding that. So I'll just try and straighten that off here, like that, and at the edges. Yeah, I mean, the internet is just amazing, isn't it? And, you know, I do think YouTube in particular is amazing. And I'm not just saying that because, you know, we all use it so much, but I mean, it really is your go-to place every time, you know, we don't know how to do anything. And I'm saying we as in collectively, you know, me, my husband, my children, even my mum and dad, you know, who are obviously, you know, an older generation. Even they, you know, go on YouTube to find out how to do things. I mean, just the most bizarre things. But a few months ago, we were we'd gone for a walk, and this particular walk, it's quite a long one, and so we tend to park a car at one end, you know, so we have to take both cars, but we park a car at one end and a car at the other end of the walk, and we do the walk and obviously then pick up the other car and drive back to the other one so that we don't have to walk there and back. You know, we could obviously do it, but my daughter is obviously only, you know, only 5, so she's only got small legs. She would probably struggle, you know, with that length of walk. And we got back to the car, you know, the second car at the end of the walk, and we couldn't unlock it. You know, the little blipper thing, you know, with the keys, it wouldn't work. So obviously what had happened, the battery had gone you know, in the key fob. And then we tried to get the, you know, that key, the manual key thing out, and we couldn't then find where the lock thing was in the door handle, you know, in the door. So we were stood there trying and trying, we couldn't find it, you know, we were looking underneath the handle, looking all around, couldn't find it anywhere. So in the end, I said, well, why don't we YouTube this? Because, you know, somebody else must know and must have, you know, had this problem. Sure enough, you know, I mean, lucky we had phone signal and charged phones, but sure enough, my son looked on his phone, you know, looked on YouTube, and sure enough, we were able to find how to get the little cap thing off of the door handle to be able to put the key in and unlock the door. But, you know, without that, because it felt like you were damaging the car, because you had to kind of pop the thing off. And without YouTube, we would never in a million years have tried to do that, because we would have obviously been terrified of actually wrecking the car. So, yeah, it just proves so useful, even in the most bizarre situations, you know. But I mean, it's the same with, you know, cooking anything, or, I don't know, we've, you know, had a patio slab come loose in the garden in the past. My son was very good and relayed it for us, and obviously he'd never done that before, so I just said, well, have a look on YouTube, you know, there's bound to be something. So he did, and sure enough there was. Right, so we've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, which is pretty good. I mean, for me that's really good, because I never do things like that. So I've just got 1 or 2 more sheets. These are obviously full sheets, but I might as well, you know, crack on and still do a couple more whilst I'm here. So again, this one, we need to just decide, do we want it, you know, which way round do we want it? If we do it this way round, we could always make a little tiny one that would just be like a fold out to pop into a pocket or something like that. So I might do that. Strangely enough, I don't mind making a few tags on the top, but I think that's because tags, you know, they tend to be very different, don't they? You know, you make lots of different tags, don't you? I'm going to have this folded in this way because this has got that lovely poem, you know, lovely bit of verse, which I wanted to obviously keep on there. I'll just chop this down. I don't think I've cut that very straight now. Obviously I'd printed it borderless, but sometimes if your paper's slightly wonky in the printer, you might just get, I mean, you probably can't even see, but there's just a, I mean, not even a millimetre of white kind of edge there, but I didn't really want it on there, so I've just trimmed that off. And we'll just fold that one round like that. I'll just trim this down. Just trim across here. So, and I know that lots of you are really, really good at doing things like making things in bulk. So, you know, there'll be loads of you that think, oh, well, I do that. You know, I do that. I do that already. But for me, this is not something I do generally. So, this is probably, I'm not saying a first, because I probably have made some things in bulk before, but I certainly haven't made many things in bulk. So, you know, this is really handy. And to be honest, I am not going to know myself to think that I will then have a bunch of things ready-made. I mean, as I say, whether or not I'll actually use them or whether I'll continue and still make things tailor-made for each journal remains to be seen. But, you know, hopefully I'll have a few things that are go-to things, you know, that I can use. So that's those, and I've just got one more sheet here which I thought I'd use. This is from my Secret Garden kit. I might make 2, I think. So again, you know, really not going to overthink this. I'm just going to cut it slightly. And obviously the beauty of this, there isn't really a right or a wrong. There is slightly, because you can see some text in through the flowers, but you know, if you got it the other way up, it wouldn't really matter, because I don't think it would be too obvious, she says, as she's actually done it the wrong way, have I? Yep. Do as I say and not as I do, obviously. I just couldn't actually see it then myself. I was kind of looking and couldn't see the right or the wrong way. Right, there's that one. Again, I'm just going to round those corners. I should really check that I'm actually still filming, because I have had 1 or 2 disasters of late, and that's so frustrating. You know, when you think you've filmed something and then you haven't. Okay, that's another one. And then this will be my last one, I think. So I would just trim down the edge that I cut, which now I haven't the foggiest which edge I did cut. So, which edge did I cut? Oh my gosh, I can't actually tell. Well, let's just go for it and start folding the page up, and then we'll trim it down, you know, whichever side we decide in a moment. So there we go. So I'll just trim it up here, because this is the side that doesn't really, you know, slot together nicely. Just check it's not too bad when you open it out. And then we'll just round the corners. Oops, there's that punch again, just playing up. Yeah, so I'll probably need to make a list of the types of things that we can make in bulk. I mean, you know, this is obviously quite dull because we're not decorating things, which, you know, that's kind of a bit of a shame, isn't it? Because that's the fun part. But that, for me, is what would then make things a little bit unusable, because they would be decorated, you know, in my mind, they would be decorated for a particular type of journal and not necessarily therefore, you know, matching what I'm actually working on at the time. Right, so to be extra efficient, we should probably ink this up. Now I'm just having a look to see where my vintage photo is. Now I do still need some more vintage photos, so it might be that I'm not going to do much inking today, because, you know, I might kind of run out. Well, not run out, but, you know, give up, because I'm having to press so hard to actually get it to be quite inky. Okay. And obviously sometimes, you know, I've got pieces ready-made that would go, but I've inked them up, and then I'm doing a journal where I'm not really inking. So to me, then it feels like it wouldn't really go. So there's all those kinds of factors, I guess, to take into account as well. But, you know, just to have a handful is going to be awesome, I think. So, and hopefully if we're doing it together, it's a little bit more fun. I mean, it's a bit more fun for me because I'm sat here chatting. Hopefully it's a bit more fun for you because you're kind of being spurred on, you know, and the time's going faster. Yeah. Just hard to know how interesting this is going to be. But, I mean, I just think actually might as well all do things together, and then a little bit time saving and more fun. So I'm going to actually give up at this point with the inking, because I would like to you know, get a juicier pad really. But just a quick note is what you could do here, you know, I mean, if you're going to be inking yours up, which I will probably do mine in slow time, you know, once I've ordered a new ink pad, so I might come straight off and actually order it while it's on my mind, fresh in my mind. I just want to share this with you. So I ordered this recently and I had been waiting for a really long time for it to arrive. It's finally here. It's called Toffee Crunch, obviously. It's by Memento. Now, I've only stamped with it one time so far, just to see what colour it came out. In fact, I think that is the colour. So I'm just going to get this little corner stamp and just show you, so as you can see the colour that it comes out. Isn't that pretty? Now, I often use the Timber Brown, which now I'm not going to be able to find that. No, I'm not going to be able to find that, I'm afraid. I often use the Timber Brown from the Stays On, but this just has a slightly more subtle kind of look to it. So, you know, quite like this. And the only reason I got it out was because I was just going to say, if you quite like doing things like, say, stamping corners or, you know, things like that, again, you may want to just do that now at this stage. So you're just, you know, taking out some of the parts, some of the process, you know, you've got more bits done and it's more ready to use. So, you know, that's just another little tip. And again, with your plainer pieces, so for instance this, you know, I would consider this quite a plain piece. You could do things like, again, stamping just on here and the inking and things, and then just leave, you know, other decoration until later. You know, for instance, if you were going to, I don't know, add a closure for instance, some string or something, or if you were going to have a ribbon tab, or if you were going to have lace across here or something, you could just effectively decorate, you know, the rest of the piece with stamps and things like that, but leave the actual, you know, any coloured bits, I guess, or any specific bits, i.e., you know, what do you call it? What are these things called? Stoppers. You know, if you were doing a stopper with, say, you know, a I mean, this is a very poor example, but let's say, for instance, you were going to use this flower as a stopper. That would then prevent that from obviously matching all of your journal pieces. So you may want to just hang fire, but decorate the rest of it, so as you've got it effectively ready to go, and all you're going to need to do then when you pull it in is decide, now, what lace do I want? What's going to tie it into the journal best? You know, what closure do I want? Do I want a closure? Do I want to have string? You know, things like that. And then all you're going to do is be tying your string around, you know, or adding your closure here, maybe some lace. So it's going to be much, much quicker, you know, is my thinking. So, yeah, just a little word really there, just to say that, you know, that might be something that, you know, you might find helpful to just have them decorated with a bit of stamping, you know, if they're plain. Obviously, if they're not plain, you might not even need to stamp them anyway, because they might be really, really fine in their patterned papers. But, you know, this way you've got more done and less to actually do then in the making part. So that one, for instance, and then maybe would just have a little bit of script on there. Maybe a little bit of script up there. So that's that one. And then I've got obviously these couple of plain ones. So again, I mean, you know, the only thing is obviously by stamping on here, I'm then determining really whether it's going to be lengthways or you know, sideways on. So all those kinds of things are worth taking into account. But obviously, you know, you may have been a lot more time efficient than me and got a lot more made, in which case, you know, you might have plenty to spare that you could do some stamped landscape and some stamped portrait. So that's another one just ready to go there. Okay, and then what I might do, just do this last one. So this one is quite wide, so I'll just stamp it round, I think this way up. So I've got this really nice stamp here, which is a mixture of text and sheet music, so I really like that. And I'm just going to, you know, madly just stamp just any old where, you know, where you fancy. And then again, I might just do a little bit of corner or something, just so it's got some other bits going on. Wow, look at that in that colour. Isn't that lovely? Yeah, I quite like this colour. So Toffee Crunch is what it's called. It's really nice, isn't it? I feel like I saw this on somebody's video, and I can't for the life of me remember whose video it was. So I apologise if it is anybody's video and they're watching this thinking, oh, well, that was me who's used that. I do apologise, I just can't remember. So this one again, this is plainish paper. So again, I'm just going to stamp this, you know, so it's ready, so it's got a little bit more, you know, going on already. And again, I might just use that same sheet music and script, because obviously this is just polka dot, so you know it's quite easy to get some other kind of feel going on there rather than just the polka dots. So there we go. Now, I don't know how many we did make in the end. We made a few more, didn't we? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So that was pretty good going, wasn't it? So I'll just see what the time is. Right, it's 37 minutes. So perhaps what we should do, you know, now we've kind of done one of these episodes, is, you know, perhaps we should try and focus it down, maybe keep them to kind of half an hour to 45 minutes, and just make, you know, as many of each thing as we can. So I hope that you guys enjoyed the episode, and I hope that you know, managed to make some of your little flip outs as well. I mean, definitely for me, this is going to be really super handy, having these ready made. And I'm just going to obviously, you know, keep them until I get a new ink pad, and then I will ink them up and they'll be even more ready to use. So yeah, I hope that you had fun, and you know, hope it wasn't too dull. But nonetheless, if you're someone like me who struggles a bit to make things in bulk, I hope that it was kind of handy doing this process together. So thanks very much for watching, and I will see you all again soon. Thanks then, bye.